Wealth that was taken for granted suddenly appears ephemeral. The amount of currency which once bought certain things no longer does, but wages have not risen along with prices. Yeah, we hear every day about how things are so expensive now, not just here in the UK, but in the US and in other countries in Europe.
Maneco says gold is becoming the true measure of value as major currencies are being heavily debased by money printing and exploding government debt. He cites Jim Sinclair's idea that currency debasement works like an invisible tax on savers and has caused today's affordability crisis. Since 2008, $20 to $25 trillion was printed, hurting the lower and middle class. Gold's surge, now far above big banks' failed forecasts, is a global signal of currency devaluation. Maneco argues the Fed will keep cutting rates and printing money to inflate the debt away, not fix the system. His message: fiat money is like confetti, and those without physical gold and silver will lose purchasing power. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Fine Metals for more updates.
It's not just becoming, in my opinion, the only way to measure value, but it looks like it's becoming a little more popular with the mainstream. I heard about Tucker Carlson yesterday, that he's created or opened a new company called Battalion Metals, basically a precious metals dealer. So I think that's quite significant. Does it mean it's a top? No, I don't think so. He's just starting out. I think it will help spread the word. So a pocketbook of gold, a survival manual for monetary mayhem. And I think we're right in the middle of the monetary mayhem. And it's by Jim Sinclair, who passed away a couple of years ago, and Peter Carlin, who actually contacted me this year. I didn't know who he was, and I've interviewed him a couple of times. I should have him on again soon, hopefully. Really nice guy, a former, foreign exchange options broker in the US and in the city of London. Really interesting guy, and come up with a PDF. I think it's only $25 and it's worth it. I'm going to put a link below in the description for it. He had to go through a legal battle because a lot of people had downloaded the book online, and of course I guess Jim Sinclair's estate and him, they have the copyright to this book because they wrote it. That's how it works. But anyway, I'm gonna, usually I look at page 70. I really like this section here. It's gold is a revealer of falsely stated wealth, and we're gonna look at that. Let's go through it because that's a huge problem these days, right? Government debt, especially here in the UK, well, everywhere around the West, I would say in the US as well. Anyway, the debasement of the British monetary system begins in earnest with debt expansion. First, silver standards were debased, and eventually nickel and copper coins were introduced. This type of dilution is also the exact recent history of American and European coinage. The British always lead things, and we're leading things on the way down, unfortunately. Remember when America coins had a silver content? America's coins had silver content. Yeah, that wasn't too long ago. 81.1% chance that the Fed will cut rates come December 10th. They don't need to cut rates. If anything, they need to hike rates because prices are running hot, but they can't hike rates because of the debt. They've got to inflate the debt away. They have to be able to carry that debt. This is exactly what America and Britain are currently living through. Yeah, and it's getting worse, of course. Personal and government indebtedness is now so high that creditors and counterparties are beginning to balk. U.S. Treasuries are now being largely bought by the issuer, the U.S. government. Yeah, the Federal Reserve. I was reading a little bit of research here. The central banks since '08 have done about 20 to 25 trillion, maybe even more, of funny money printing, false money, really. And that's why this is happening. Yeah, and the way the issuer buys the government debt is through quantitative easing, right? The Fed is not independent. They wouldn't be they wouldn't have done so much QE, and they're probably going to start again. It says when wealth is overstated and expectations for future wealth are unrealistic, fiat currencies depreciate. That depreciation is borne by the citizenry. Well, there you go. It's that affordability crisis, right? It's currency debasement. That's why the bottom 50 everywhere in the West is suffering, and I would say probably even more than 50. Yeah, who are forced to lower their living standards to compensate for both personal economic mismanagement as well as the mismanagement of the affairs of state. And that's why I always tell you that you need to be self-reliant and not dependent on the state, because if you're dependent on the state, your financial situation is going to get worse. If you've been buying gold and silver, like I've been talking about for the last 10 years, you should be doing fine now, hopefully. Financial and military overextension has a social corollary in overpromised Social Security, Medicare, overstated real estate equities, affluence. As expense runs out of control, guarantees to the citizenry also explode as politicians seek to retain the privilege of office. Well, that's what's going to happen tomorrow in the budget. They're going to keep punishing wealth producers here in the UK, so they can pander to their voters, their base, which is basically the public sector and people who want to live at the expense of other people. But the promises of wealth are false. The belief that ownership of real estate is a ticket to fortunes is hollowed out for what it is, a myth. Instead of wealth, citizens get saddled with a big chunk of government debt, i.e. debt created by mismanagement. The result is everyone pays more for food, fuel, and other necessities. Government passes on the mismanagement of economic affairs to its citizens by devaluation. Well, devaluation is gold revaluation. It's the opposite, right? Jim Sinclair always said the opposite of the U.S. currency is gold, or the U.S. dollar. As the imprisoned money manager Martin Armstrong has artfully stated, open quotes, the decline in the value of a currency is in reality a free market tax taking away wealth that is overstated. So currency can also be an indirect tax to compensate for the poor management of the state. The rest of the world, the non-Western aligned world, the BRICS, whatever you want to call them, Global South, they're buying gold. It's not just because they're scared of sanctions and their reserves being frozen. It's also because they know that this is happening and the dollar is becoming worth less and less. Yes, their currencies aren't any better, but still they're holding a lot of dollars, and they need something. Well, just like you and I, they got to protect it. So they buy gold and even silver now. That's why I think it's maybe in the short term it isn't for traders, but longer term it's a waste of time to be comparing dollars to pounds, dollars to euros, dollars to yen, because they're all going down versus real money. As is both presently and historically evident, the attempt to restate wealth to a lower level becomes a competitive event in its own right, as nations fight to devalue their currencies against each other to reduce the burden of indebtedness. It should be recalled that when FDR lowered the value of the dollar vis-a-vis gold in 1933, America was the 9th nation to do so in a 3-year period. Falsely stated and assumed wealth largely created out of the assumption of debts, well, that's QE, that can not be borne, must eventually reset at a lower level. And people, they're not allowing this to happen. They're going to do more QE. They're going to cut more rates. They're going to cut rates more, excuse me. And things are getting really, really, well, crazy, I would say. Mayhem and chaos is the order of the day for the monetary world. Populations bear the restatement of wealth through the expansion of monetary aggregates, causing a devaluing of the national currency that denominates their wealth. This happens to all currency holders, regardless if they personally assumed any debts. Gold rises because gold is a monetary proxy inversely related to a nation's currency. The burden of indebtedness is reduced along with the standard of living. Commodity prices increase, debt deflation has become currency inflation. They are one. One is of gold. It's a weekly chart. And you can see that since 2024, we've had these periods where gold has gone up, and then it's consolidated for a little while, and then it's gone up again. And we're in the same boat here right now. And this triangle here is getting smaller than the previous ones. So the only danger here is that we could see a breakout here, let's say, and the breakout would be above 41.70. But then it could fail, and this triangle could evolve a bit longer, maybe to January. But the only way to find out is to sit and wait. By the way, the miners did very well yesterday, and I saw that the NASDAQ had a good day. But if you look at this chart of the NASDAQ 100 here, I think we actually might be building a right-hand shoulder of a head and shoulder top. If you look here, back in the last quarter of 2024, Goldman Sachs, he said that in the bullish scenario for this year, 2025, they saw gold at 31.50. And here we are at, let's see, this morning at 41.33. So, yeah, way above their expectations. JP Morgan, last quarter of 2024, they published a view that they would see 31.50 by the end of 2025, and maybe in and also in October this year, they said that it would average 36.75 in the fourth quarter of this year. So they've been way too cautious. And I think I know why. It's because bankers hate gold and silver. Citigroup, well, that's a joke. In the fourth quarter last year, they said that they saw gold getting up to 2,900 for 2025. I think it was just below 2,500 at the time. So here we are at 4,100. So I feel sorry for some of their clients, but yeah, that's the way things are.